The moment lives rent-free in my memory. My parents sat across from me at that dinner table, composed, almost ceremonial, and slid a crisp white envelope toward my younger sister like they were crowning royalty. Inside it, a check for $100,000 for a wedding. One single day, and me? Just days before, I had gone to them quietly, humbly, and asked to borrow $5,000, not as a gift, a loan. To stop 3 years of grinding hustle from going up in smoke because of a supply chain crisis I had no control over. My mother didn't even hesitate. She looked straight into my eyes and said, "You don't deserve a single cent of our help. You pick at a hard road, now choke on it." Something inside me didn't just break that night. It crystallized. I stood up from that table, walked out of their house, and made myself a silent, unbreakable promise. They would never hear from me again, until the day they couldn't ignore me. 3 years later, my sister's car crept slowly down the most exclusive street in the city. And Thench saw it, my name engraved on a gate standing before a $2 million estate. She pulled over. She called our mother, sobbing, "Stay with me, because what happened at that final meeting?" They never saw it coming. My name is Cora Bennett. I'm 31 years old, and I've spent most of my life being the other daughter. Not the favorite, not the golden one. I was the one who woke up early, stayed up late, and built things with my own hands, while my younger sister Vanessa simply existed and was rewarded lavishly for it. Vanessa had a gift for being effortlessly adored. One smile and our parents melted, one problem and they rushed to fix it. She never had to earn their generosity. I had to earn everything else. I had been quietly growing an e-commerce brand for years, real work, real risk, real reward. But then a brutal supply chain disruption hit, the kind that swallows small businesses whole, and I found myself staring at a gap I couldn't personally bridge fast enough. $5,000. That was all I needed to survive it. A bridge, not a bailout. So I went to my family. I sat in their living room, laid out the numbers, and asked carefully, practically, for a temporary loan. Not charity. I even offered to put it in writing. The answer was silence, followed by a polite but definitive no. Then came that Tuesday night dinner, and suddenly $100,000 materialized for a single event. A party with a dress and flowers and champagne, while my entire livelihood was apparently not worth $5,000. When my voice cracked at that table and I asked about the difference, my mother's warmth evaporated instantly. She leaned forward and delivered her verdict like a judge reading a sentence. "Vanessa is building a real life. You're wasting your time on a little internet hobby that's already failing. You did this to yourself, Cora. You don't deserve our help." My father didn't look up from his plate. Vanessa just watched. A quiet, satisfied smirk tucked into the corner of her lips. And I sat there for a long, still moment, feeling something shift deep in my chest. Not rage, not grief, clarity. 31 years of bending myself trying to earn their approval, trying to be seen as enough, it dissolved in that one sentence. For the first time, I saw the situation for exactly what it was, so I said 2 words. "I understand." I pushed my chair back slowly, stood up, and walked out of their house for the last time. The next morning, I didn't send an emotional text. I didn't call with a dramatic farewell speech. I simply opened my phone and one by one blocked them all. Numbers, emails, social media. Every digital thread that still connected me to them cut cleanly, quietly, permanently. If I wasn't worth $5,000, they weren't worth my attention. What followed was the hardest season of my life. To keep the business alive, I liquidated what little I had. I broke my lease and moved into a studio apartment that barely fit a mattress and a folding table. My kitchen was a corner. My office was my lap. For months, I ate instant noodles and survived on something that money can't buy, the kind of stubborn fire that only ignites when someone tells you that you can't. Every morning I woke up in that cramped room and thought about my mother's face. And then I got back to work. I didn't just patch the problem, I rebuilt the entire foundation. I cut loose every weak link in my supply chain and spent weeks forging direct international partnerships that nobody in my niche had thought to pursue. It was lonely, exhausting, obsessive work. But with no toxic comparisons pulling me under and no family dinners tearing me apart, I discovered something remarkable. I could think clearly. I could move fast. I could win. By the end of year 2, the business didn't just recover. It erupted. The international structure I had scrambled to build out of desperation became a competitive advantage that left my rivals far behind. Orders flooded in faster than my systems could process them. Revenue climbed past anything I had dared to put in a spreadsheet. Within months, I went. From sleeping on a mattress on the floor to quietly managing a thriving corporate enterprise worth more than I had ever dreamed. And I told no one, no victory posts, no subtle flexes online. I simply accumulated, calmly, privately, invisibly. Then I made my move. I purchased a $2 million estate in one of the most exclusive gated communities in the city, glass and steel and sculptured stone, a sweeping balcony overlooking manicured lawns. A life that felt like the polar opposite of everything I had survived. Every morning I stepped out onto that balcony, held my coffee with both hands, looked out at the peaceful horizon and thought, they have absolutely no idea. I was a ghost living inside a paradise they never believed I could build. And that was exactly the way I wanted it. It was a bright Saturday afternoon when the universe decided to close the loop. I was standing in my driveway, reviewing business reports on my phone while waiting for my landscape architect, when a mid-range sedan turned slowly down my street. It moved the way cars do when their passengers are studying the real estate, weighing what they can and cannot afford. Then it stopped. The passenger window came down, and there she was, Vanessa. She looked different, older, worn thin, the effortless glow she once carried completely hollowed out. I found out later that the $100,000 had been burned through in spectacular fashion on a wedding so extravagant it left her marriage buried in debt. She and her husband were quietly scouting cheaper neighborhoods, completely unaware that the sister they had watched walk away in shame was living just minutes away behind these very gates. Our eyes locked. Time went strange for a moment. She stared at me, then at the sweeping modern mansion behind me. Then back at me, standing there in a tailored blazer, calm, unhurried. Entirely at peace. The full weight of the situation registered on her face in real time. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I simply held her gaze in complete silence until her husband pressed the gas and the car disappeared from view. She didn't even make it to the next block before she pulled over, grabbed her phone with trembling hands, and called our mother in hysterics. "Mom, you don't understand. She lives in a palace. An actual palace." Fallout was immediate. 3 years of deliberate silence suddenly meant nothing. The ugly words spoken at that dinner table had apparently been quietly erased from memory. The daughter they had branded a failure was now, without warning, the most important person in their orbit. They couldn't reach me by phone. My number was still blocked. So they flooded my business email. They sent certified letters to my company address. And the tone of every single message had done a complete reversal. Where there had once been cold, cutting arrogance, there was now a desperate, almost theatrical warmth. My mother wrote long, rambling paragraphs about how deeply she missed her eldest daughter. My father spoke about family standing together during difficult times. Vanessa used the word reconnect as if it were something soft and innocent, as if it carried no history at all. It carried everything. They didn't miss me, they had run the numbers, and now they missed what I had. I read every single message. And I felt nothing but a clean, unshakable sense of finality. Then I made one last decision. I would see them. Once. In public. Entirely on my terms. Not to reconcile. Not to forgive. But to close the chapter so completely that it could never be reopened. We met at a quiet, upscale café downtown. When I walked in, all 3 of them were already seated, my parents and Vanessa, pale-faced and stiff, wearing expressions I had never once seen on them before. Uncertainty. The specific, uncomfortable stillness of people who no longer know how much power they hold in a room. My mother began to speak. I could see the apology forming, carefully worded, emotionally layered, designed to crack something open in me. I raised one hand. She stopped. I looked at all 3 of them and spoke quietly. No drama, no performance. No tears. I told them they were permanently removed from my life. Not out of anger. Not as punishment. Simply because that boundary now existed, was made of stone, and would never move. I told them that their rejection, as gutting as it was at the time, had accidentally handed me the greatest gift of my life. Because of them, I had learned how to build without a safety net. How to rise without their approval. How to succeed without a single witness from this family. They had cut me loose, and I had learned to soar. I placed enough cash on the table to cover every cup of coffee. Then I stood up, walked out of that cafe, and stepped forward into the life I had built, entirely, quietly, beautifully my own. And now I want to hear from you. If you were standing where I stood, if the people who were supposed to protect you had instead decided you weren't worth saving, what would you do? Would you have walked into that cafe? Would you have forgiven them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And tell me what city you're watching from. I want to see just how far this story has reached. Thank you for staying until the very last word. It means everything.